There are days that look exactly like every other day. The sun still rises on time, people still head out with their familiar routines. The news still talks about achievements, entertainment, and progress. And it is on days like these that history often ends. Not with a loud explosion, but with a dangerous silence. The silence of conscience. Because the day of judgment does not arrive when the world is in chaos. It arrives when people believe everything is under control. When they stop asking, when is this right? And only ask, what is in it for me? When the line between what is lawful and what is forbidden is no longer broken by force, but slowly worn down by familiarity. First, it is an exception. Then it becomes a trend. And finally, what is wrong becomes the norm. Humanity has not lost knowledge. On the contrary, people know more than ever before. They understand how the universe works, the structure of life, the secrets of cells and genes. But as knowledge increases, humility disappears. People no longer see themselves as creation, but begin to act like owners. They interfere with life not out of responsibility, but out of arrogance. They alter, clone, and experiment not to protect humanity, but to satisfy a hunger for power. And when morality is no longer a boundary, anything can be justified. Society continues to function, but meaning does not. Truth is replaced with stories that are easier to accept. Purity is dismissed as naive. Self-restraint is seen as weakness. The human body is no longer respected as a trust, but displayed like a product. What once made people feel shame is now something to boast about. And when no one feels shame anymore, that is not freedom. It is a sign that something inside has died. The most frightening thing is not sin. It is that people no longer feel sinful. Not mistakes, but the fact that mistakes no longer trouble the soul. People laugh, live, and enjoy themselves, while on the inside the moral foundation is quietly rotting. That day does not come because the world lacks achievements, but because the world has lost its purpose. Not because humanity has grown weaker, but because it has forgotten who it is. And it is precisely at that moment, when everything looks most normal, that the truth is already very close. Welcome to Prophetic History Explained. If you are hearing these words, pause for a moment. Not to be afraid, but to awaken. Because what we are about to discuss is not a story for entertainment, and it is not an empty threat. It is a mirror held up to humanity, asking each person one question. If today were the final day, where would I be standing? The day of judgment does not begin with the sky collapsing. It begins inside the human being. From the moment people stop distinguishing right from wrong. From the moment they trade the hereafter for the temporary comfort of this life. From the moment they believe there is still plenty of time, that they will turn back later. That this warning is not meant for them. But the history of past nations shows one unchanging rule. When moral decay is called progress, when immorality is called personal freedom, when arrogance is called confidence, collapse becomes only a matter of time. And what is most frightening is that collapse often comes when people feel safest. If there is one thing that makes the day of judgment terrifying, it is not images of destruction, but the truth that it does not come unexpectedly. It comes after countless warnings were ignored, after countless opportunities were wasted, after countless moments when conscience spoke, only to be silenced by convenience. And this is only the beginning. If you want to understand why the world has reached this point, why these signs are appearing, and what truly awaits humanity at the end of history, stay with us. Do not leave halfway through. Because the ending of this story is not for those who only listen to half of it. Subscribe to Prophetic History Explained to support us and give us the motivation to continue creating deeper and more truthful videos. Every subscription does not only help the channel grow, but helps this message reach hearts that need to be awakened. That moment is not announced by a meeting, nor does it arrive after a countdown. It comes when the command has been given, and from that instant on, all familiar laws become meaningless. Not because they are broken, but because they have completed their task. The time allotted to this world has ended. There is an angel who has been waiting for that moment longer than human history itself. Not in anxiety, not in hesitation, but in absolute obedience. Thousands of years pass, the universe functions, stars move in their orbits, the earth turns steadily, and humanity assumes this is natural and permanent. But everything that exists has a limit, and when the command is given, no force can delay it. The trumpet is blown, not like any sound human ears have known, but like a command that pierces every level of existence. It does not only touch the atmosphere, but strikes the very foundation of reality. In that instant, the world is no longer familiar. The earth shakes not according to seismic rhythms, but by a shock that comes from absolute authority. The ground once trusted to be firm becomes unstable, as if it realizes it is no longer permitted to remain as it was. The sky does not collapse immediately. It splits. Cracks spread like fractures across a massive sheet of glass, signaling that the protection once surrounding this world is being withdrawn. Stars that once symbolized order and direction lose their light. There is no guidance, no point of reference. People look up and realize that what they once used to locate themselves in the universe no longer answers. Mountains, once seen as symbols of strength and permanence, begin to lose their form, not collapsing like disasters recorded before, but dissolving, as if their weight is no longer being held. Rocks roll, earth slides, massive structures move in ways that defy every physical law humans once understood. Cities built on the belief that humanity had conquered nature now appear as fragile as temporary models. Temperature rises in a way that renders all measurement meaningless. Ice melts not only from heat, but because balance itself has been withdrawn. Oceans cross their boundaries. The sea is no longer the sea. It becomes a consuming force, rising and surging, dragging away everything built along the shores. Waves are no longer natural phenomena. They are moving walls of finality, crashing onto land with a power no structure can withstand. In that moment, everything humanity once trusted collapses at once. There is no shelter deep enough, no technology fast enough, no strategy clever enough. Systems once praised as the peak of human intelligence fall silent, not because they are destroyed, but because they were never designed to face this. This is not a disaster to be fixed. This is an ending to be accepted. What makes this moment terrifying is not the scale of destruction, but its absolute clarity. There is no confusion about the cause, no question of why. Humanity understands in a painful moment of awareness that this world did not collapse on its own. It was brought to its end at the exact time that had been set. Everything before it was only a merciful delay. There is no longer any concept of safety, no place to run. Distances that once offered hope now only stretch fear. People move but go nowhere. They realize they are not escaping but witnessing layer after layer of the world being stripped away. Every layer of protection removed until nothing remains between them and the truth. And in that moment when the universe trembles, one final realization rises clearer than any knowledge ever learned. Humanity never controlled this world. People were only allowed to live in it for a given time. When that time ends, the world does not need permission to conclude. The trumpet does not last long, but its consequences are beyond measure, because it is not only the sound of destruction, but the confirmation that everything with a beginning has an end, and that end has finally arrived. When the greatest shock passes, what remains is not chaos, but something even more frightening: the complete dissolution of all connections. On that day, the world is no longer defined by space or time, but by a bare truth. Every soul stands alone before what is coming. There is no we, no collective identity to rely on, only individuals facing themselves. In that moment, relationships once considered sacred become strangely fragile, not because love disappears, but because love can no longer save. A father looks at his child but cannot move closer. A mother hears a familiar voice, but her heart can no longer respond. Siblings, spouses, friends all realize the same truth. No one can carry another's burden, and no one can take another's place. There is no scheming here, no conspiracy, only the most primal human instinct before absolute truth. Each person has only one cry rising from the depths of the soul: me. Not out of selfishness, but because they understand that this moment leaves no room for pretending. No one to blame, no one to lean on. Everything that once covered humanity and worldly life has been stripped away. Social identity dissolves first. No titles, no roles, no names that once commanded respect. A person's value is no longer measured by status, wealth, or influence. The things that once allowed people to walk confidently through life cannot be carried forward. They fall away like coats that serve no purpose where truth is the only measure. Then life itself begins to be withdrawn. Not in an order familiar to human understanding, not distinguishing high or low, strong or weak. The souls of all creatures are called back. The sound of existence fades. A world once full of motion enters a silence never experienced before. This silence is not rest. It is the closing of a long chapter in the history of creation. Even beings humans never saw but always knew existed complete their mission. There are no more tasks to carry out, no new commands to await. Layer by layer, existence closes in order until nothing remains in motion. Not because of chaos, but because everything has reached its appointed end. In that moment when life fully withdraws, humanity understands true absolute solitude. Not the loneliness once felt in worldly life, but a state where there is no support beyond the self. No voice to answer, no eyes to search for, only the realization that everything once given has now been taken back. And then, even the greatest of created beings do not remain. Those humans believed stood beyond the cycle of life and death also return, not in weakness but in complete obedience. No distinction of great or small, high or low. Before ultimate truth, all creation is equal in being created. When created existence ends, space and time lose meaning. There is no sky to cover, no ground to support, no flow to mark passing moments. Only one existence remains without beginning and without end. An existence dependent on nothing while everything else depends on him. In that absolute stillness, a question is proclaimed, not to seek an answer, but to affirm the truth. To whom belongs sovereignty today? There is no reply because there is no one left to answer, and that silence is the clearest confirmation of all. Every power humans once fought over, every influence once admired, every symbol once raised has vanished without a trace. On that day, humanity understands something it had heard many times but never truly absorbed. They never owned anything. They were only granted temporary use. When the term ended, everything returned to the true owner. There is no injustice in this, only a truth revealed too late. And in that moment without us, when every soul stands alone, people finally understand the weight of every small choice they once dismissed. From that point on, there is no chance to correct, no time to delay. What was planted in worldly life becomes the only provision for what comes next. After absolute stillness, when everything seems finished, another command is given. Not to destroy, but to bring life back. and that moment terrifies the soul more than death itself. Because death ends pain, but return opens responsibility. The earth that once closed now opens. Not with an explosion, but with slow, irresistible movement. What was buried for centuries and millennia rises again. Bones return to their places, bodies are restored, souls that were taken back return to where they once departed. People rise confused, carrying nothing that once made them proud. No possessions, no honor, no defense, only themselves, complete in truth. They stand there exposed and bewildered, as if waking from a long sleep without knowing how long they slept. No one asks what happened. No one asks where they are, because the moment they look around, everyone understands this is not a place to ask questions, but a place to wait for answers. And the waiting begins. Mahshar is not immediate punishment by fire. It is the punishment of extended time, of uncertainty, of standing among billions of souls without knowing what lies ahead. The sun is no longer in its familiar position. It draws so close that breathing becomes heavy. Heat does not only burn the body, but crushes the will. Sweat is no longer a natural response, but a burden rising in proportion to how each person lived. There is no shade to hide in, no private space to avoid the gaze of truth. Whether someone lived upright or went astray, everyone feels the weight of this moment. Because here, the difference is not who is present, but what each person will face when their moment is called. Time stretches beyond any earthly measure. A day here is unlike any day that ever existed before. It does not pass, it presses down, and in that waiting, people realize that facing justice is more terrifying than knowing a verdict. Because before judgment, all possibilities still exist, and that uncertainty leaves the soul restless. Even those who lived with strong faith feel their hearts tighten. Not because they doubt the Creator, but because they understand no one enters judgment without shortcomings. The justice of Allah allows no evil to be overlooked, and His mercy does not rush to condemn. That perfect balance strips away every illusion people held about themselves, making mahshar a place of absolute exposure. When waiting reaches its limit, mercy is granted not to erase responsibility, but to begin the process. Prolonged waiting is a test, but the start of judgment is what finally puts everything in its rightful place. And when that moment arrives, no one can interrupt and no one can delay it. Records are given to each person without names being called, without instructions. Every soul receives exactly its own. No confusion, no omission. No one asks why that record is in their hands. The moment they touch it, they know it is the most accurate account of their life, detailed enough that not a single memory is missing. What was hidden appears clearer than any confession. The smallest action, the quietest intention, the most harmless sounding word, all are present. No one is judged unfairly, but no one can escape. Truth needs no witnesses because each person is the witness to their own life. Some faces brighten when they realize their quiet good deeds were never forgotten. Others darken when they see that what they once considered insignificant carries far more weight than expected. Justice is no longer a moral idea. It is a visible reality. Mahshar is not a place to argue, but a place to understand. To understand that life was not a series of random events, but a fully recorded process. To understand that every choice has consequences. And to understand that no one arrives empty-handed because everyone carries the life they lived. When truth is revealed like this, people realize that the most frightening thing is not judgment itself, but how lightly they once treated choices they thought did not matter. Here, nothing is small. Everything has weight. And from this moment on, what has been recorded determines the final path each soul must walk. When all verdicts are declared, when there is no debate and no questions left, people think everything is over. But in reality, this is only the final boundary before eternal destiny is shaped. Because after judgment, there is still a path no one can avoid. A path not built to test strength, but to fully reveal what each person became in worldly life. That bridge is unlike anything humans ever imagined. It does not resemble safety, nor is it designed to support. It is so thin that carelessness is impossible, and so sharp that pretense cannot survive. Beneath it is fire, not a temporary flame, but a punishment long prepared. Ahead lies the path to what souls were promised, but only for those truly ready. No one is exempt. No one takes a shortcut. Every soul, regardless of status or past, must step onto that bridge. And the moment they do, they understand this is not a place for luck, but for outcomes. The bridge does not judge anyone. It simply reflects exactly what each person carries. Some cross so quickly they do not even look back. Not because they are stronger, but because their burden is light. Their lives were not weighed down by hidden wrongs or unrepented sins. The light before them is steady and clear, built from a lifetime of sincerity. Some walk slowly, trembling, every step uncertain, not because they were completely lost, but because their lives were a mixture of right and wrong, effort and neglect. Their light does not go out, but it is not strong enough to push away the surrounding darkness. They must feel their way forward, maintain balance, and face every moment of fear created by their own hesitation in life. And then there are those who fall the moment they step on. Not because the bridge is cruel, but because they carry no light at all. Their lives were built on appearances, words, and actions meant to be seen, not on inner truth. What they displayed to others cannot become light here. When there is no one left to deceive, all hypocrisy collapses at once. Light here is not a random gift. It is the result of countless small choices in worldly life. From restraint when no one was watching, from good deeds done without recognition, from quiet repentance, from humility before the Creator and kindness toward people. This light cannot be borrowed, copied, or created at the last moment. Some souls look toward others, hoping to ask for a little more light. But here, everyone has only their own share. No one can give what they spent an entire lifetime earning. Justice is no longer an idea. It is a direct, undeniable experience. Hooks and thorns are not random punishments. They hold back what does not belong on this path. Bad habits, unjust gains, and arrogance never lowered all become weight that pulls the soul off balance. Not because Allah wants anyone to fall, but because people carried too much that could not cross. On the other side of the bridge, reward does not come as a surprise. Those who cross understand they were prepared for this moment long ago. And those who fall also understand in their most painful moment that this path never deceived them. It only spoke the truth they avoided while there was still time to change. When the soul reaches the end, a realization clearer than any lesson ever heard emerges. Paradise and hell do not begin after death. They were built day by day through every choice, intention, and seemingly small action in worldly life. The day of judgment does not create destiny. It reveals the destiny people quietly wrote for themselves. And if there is one final reminder after all of this, it is this: that final path is not decided when stepping onto the bridge, but in the most ordinary days of life, when no one is watching, when there is no pressure, when people believe they still have plenty of time. The greatest lesson is not about imagining the future, but about how we live now. Every word must be weighed, every action examined by conscience. Every decision asked this question: if this were the final choice of my life, would I stand before Allah with it? Repentance does not wait for perfection. It begins the moment we recognize we were wrong. Good deeds do not need to be great, only sincere and consistent. And humility does not make a person smaller. It allows them to stand firmly before the truth. If these words caused you to pause and reflect, that is not by chance. Join the Prophetic History Explained community to continue exploring deep knowledge about the history of the prophets, the signs of the final era, and spiritual lessons that help us live with awareness in a restless world. And if you would like to support the channel so we can continue creating content like this, subscribe to Prophetic History Explained. Every subscription is a form of companionship, so these stories are not only told but truly reach and awaken.